Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Go to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, offseason in full swing now, I would say, as the rumors continue to pour in as to who's coming to the Chargers, who's looking at LA for their next destination. Lots of rumors, man, about big names around the NFL looking for LA to potentially be their new home. And honestly, I get it. The Chargers have turned things around dramatically. The new era of Jim Harbaugh has begun. The success that's to follow is likely with it, as they have turned around a 5-win team to an 11-win team, a playoff berth. Feels like what was last season a season of figuring it out, right? Getting guys on the roster, working with your budget. That was yesterday. Today and the tomorrow is all around making a championship caliber football team, which is flushed with cash, which is flushed with picks. Yes, has the resources to do so. And that's led a lot of speculation in the Chargers' direction. Who are they going to go after? What big names are going to be added to the team? That's what we're going to be looking at today, as we heard a lot about DK Metcalf in my last couple of videos. We're going to talk about even more speculation and rumors revolving around the Chargers trading for stars around the league. These are not my predictions. These are actually predictions and rumors spread out across the universe and in the social medias and on the web that we're going to be speculating on today as fans, and on what do we think the likeliness of it happening and whether or not we would do it. And honestly, just kind of going through all of this to realize, hey, this ain't your daddy's Chargers. This is a team that's likely going to make a big move. The question is, which one is it going to be? Now, before we get things kicked off, hit us up, or I should say, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers, definitely take advantage of the free pick here. Curry for the win. There, it's a great way to support my platform and have some fun along the way. Before we do get kicked off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Your Los Angeles Chargers early trade rumors floating around out there. Man, the Super Bowl hasn't even been played yet. The Combine isn't even being talked about yet. And yet there's a lot of talk about who should be signed to the Los Angeles Chargers this upcoming free agent period, say trading period, as there's a lot of names. All the names on today's list are names that the Chargers would have to pursue via trade. And it's interesting looking at all the different situations these players are in, given what the Chargers are offering, given what the Chargers have in terms of cap space, which, as a reminder, the Bolts are going to be projected over $100 million in cap. One of the top teams in the NFL in terms of money. We're going to have some of the most draft picks and capital to work with in the NFL draft as well, which just gives us a lot of resources, a lot of ammunition to go after a move like this. And honestly, it feels like something is real here. It feels like something is gonna happen because, again, last season was about surviving. This season is about thriving, and I do believe that it's going to make a big impact on how the Chargers want to build moving forward. Now, a lot of these, again, are going to be rumors. Take them with a grain of salt, okay? Nothing here is guaranteed. Everything is speculation. Everything is not backed by a coach slamming the table saying, we're going to go get this guy. This is speculation around the league, considering the new reputation of the Chargers and why a lot of players and teams are going to want to, or I should say, players on former teams are going to want to come to LA and try and help make that happen. The first one here being a blockbuster trade for Cowboys superstar. You guys see the number right there, Micah Parsons. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. This one, I've seen this around. Okay, I've seen it around social media. I've seen it, of obviously Sports Illustrated and other beat writers, and it's very interesting to me. It doesn't seem very likely, but the more you get reading into the situation going on with the Dallas Cowboys, with Micah Parsons in particular, it starts to kind of make sense. And again, the Chargers are going to be one of those teams that gets connected to a lot of these names in the offseason because of our resources, ascending success behind Jim Harbaugh, et cetera, et cetera. So it would make sense that if Micah Parsons were to make himself available, that the Chargers would be a very highly coveted a destination for him, and one that he would try to work out. And of course, these guys don't have all the power and control of where they go to if they are indeed traded. There's a lot of things that have to happen in terms of negotiation, who's going to return what, who's going to return the most, where you want them to go, not inside the division, not inside the conference even sometimes. A lot of things to take in consideration here. But Micah Parsons, is this one you guys are slamming the table for, saying, hey, I don't care what it costs, bring him to the team? Because that's likely what it's going to cost, man. You're talking about a first-round pick, maybe multiple first-round picks, and then some. He would be a big add, though. You take a look, and this is one of the things the article did mention, that the Chargers' edge rushing room is not solidified going forward. It's been a big strength of the team the last couple of seasons with Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, the ascending talent of Tuli Tuipulotu. And one of the telling moves that the Chargers did make this last offseason does give me faith that they may be on the move for another big superstar edge rusher, whether it be through the draft or via trade. And it was the signing of Bud Dupree. That one had me scratching my head a little bit because the Chargers at that time were already extremely talented and deep at the edge rusher position. They wanted more. And to that, it tells me that the Chargers are really leaning on that edge group to help float the defense, to really build something for the defense, to give them a foundation of lethalness and consistency that other teams just don't have. And that put a huge emphasis on the edge position for me, a Chargers fan, and how I think they value the position. So edge rusher, which is going to be the first position that we cover in today's video, is one that I do think the Chargers at some point in the offseason are going to add talent to. Whether, again, the draft has a couple of nice names on there, maybe some value you can find later down, the line to pair up with the Thule. Hopefully the Chargers bring back at least Khalil Mack on a one-year deal. But if you're looking for the future, and if edge is truly that important to you as the Los Angeles Chargers, and if Micah Parsons, of all players, happens to be available, why not take a swing at that? He's 25 years old, logged 43 tackles, 12 sacks last season. This is one of the biggest playmakers in the NFL at his position, another Pro Bowl level talent the Chargers could pursue, like their trade for Khalil Mack, but this one would last a heck of a lot longer, seeing as he's only 25 years old. And the window is open. Again, in this article, they state that, Micah Parsons wasn't super happy with some of their coaching choices. Obviously, the success in Dallas is certainly going to be an issue for a lot of these Dallas Cowboys players going forward. They've already handed out massive contracts to guys like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. There may just not be the resources to pay Parsons what he desires, and the Chargers, who are a team flush with cash, would be willing to hand out a big number to a position like edge, to a particular talent like Micah Parsons, in my opinion. Again, this doesn't hold much weight to me in terms of, is it actually going to happen? But it is actually something that I would consider as a Chargers fan being worth it. Because, again, this would be a very expensive move if the Chargers were to pursue it. One that I actually would endorse. I think it is worth a first-round pick this year, maybe next year, and some change even after that. But that's how big of an impact player a guy like Micah Parsons can be. He's only 25 years old and certainly would be a huge building block for this team going forward. And again, the Chargers, we have the resources to do it. Why not flex on it while we have it? All right. Next rumor also coming in from Sports Illustrated. Matthew Schmidt, going to be, I think, the writer in a lot of these you're going to see for the Chargers out here. Chargers also linked to a intriguing trade for 8-time Pro Bowler. You guys recognize the name, the number 94, Cameron Jordan. Man, it feels like Cameron Jordan's been in this league forever. I think about my time watching football, back in late high school, college, all that kind of stuff, and you think of Cam Jordan, you're like, yeah, man, dude's been a dog his entire career. He's been here a while. 35 years old. He's still got it. If you guys are wondering, he's too old, he's obsolete. Nah, the dude is still a game wrecker in a lot of different ways, but not in the same way as a Micah Parsons, which is why I'm putting him right after Parsons. This is a different situation, a different scenario, in which the Chargers would be able to maneuver in addition to the edge line without breaking the bank as much as would be a Micah Parsons. Now, this is going to be a rotational sort of player that you add to the line, very similar to how we saw with Bud Dupree, maybe a little bit, but definitely more of a premium in terms of that. Even though Bud Dupree did log more sacks, Cam Jordan would be an awesome player to line up, on the outside with Thule and Khalil Mack. He adds that big, density at edge rusher that you're looking for, someone that can help versus the run as well. And in terms of why he's, looking, outside rather than in terms of, his time with the New Orleans Saints, a lot of stuff's going on behind the scenes in terms of the Saints' money. And this has been a story, as a tale as old as time. The Saints are crazy at maneuvering the salary cap, but they have to make big moves in order to make that work. They've always been $30, $40, $50, $60 million over the cap, and somehow they become cap compliant every single season to kick off the year. And part of that is moving on from some, larger contracts. Cam Jordan, not particularly huge. If I remember right, it was somewhere in the realm of $10, $12 million if he were to be traded for his new team. That's certainly something that the Chargers would absolutely be looking at for a talent like Cam Jordan. It would be a very cheap acquisition too, where Micah Parsons would likely come at the price tag of, multiple first-round picks and then some, and then a big contract on top of that, seeing as Micah Parsons also on a contract year. That's going to be a very, familiar aspect to a lot of these contracts here that we discussed today. But he wouldn't cost nearly as much in terms of return, right? It would be a late round pick. You're mostly adopting the cap from the New Orleans Saints in a scenario like this. And if I do remember correctly, too, in my research, I should have written this down. Cameron Jordan was considering requesting a trade. I think if it was even last season. But, of course, he did play with the New Orleans Saints last year and maybe makes himself available for trade this season. The New Orleans Saints and a lot of the talent over there, as they're continuing to find their identity. Of course, the Derek Carr experiment did not work quite as well for them. They're on the lookout for a quarterback, which is probably not going to happen for a few seasons. Got to look at guys like Cam Jordan, some of their offensive talent, Alvin Kamara, some of their defensive talent, Tyron Matthew, and think these guys are going to be made available, okay? And that's going to be another position that the Chargers are going to be taking a look at in terms of edge. I think Cam Jordan, be it an older and cheaper option, would be an option to help fill the gap as they continue to build maybe in the draft for that edge position. Now, the last edge, very exciting stuff here. This is the Chargers pitched as a trade destination for the Browns' Myles Garrett, and this is one that I heard clear back during the regular season in December, I think, for the first time, as Myles Garrett did describe himself as unhappy with the situation that is unfolding in Cleveland. This is a team that was very much so a contender a couple of years ago. And since what feels like the Deshaun Watson, saga began, this team has been in a pretty sharp trajectory downward. And Myles Garrett made it very clear that he wants to be part of a contender going into the future. And now the Chargers, firmly on that list as a contender, have the money to make something happen, become a very popular destination for a guy like Myles Garrett. This is huge, man. And for many of the different reasons I described, Micah Parsons and Cameron Jordan, this feels like a nice middle ground of everything here. Micah Parsons would be the huge acquisition, young guy, 25 years old, multiple picks, building for the future. Cam Jordan's the older guy, cheaper, comes in, buys time for us to build in the draft. Myles Garrett, 29 years old, middle of the pack here, right? Still has plenty of years left on him. I would say 4, 5, 6 years even. This is very, very special talent. One of the best you're going to find in the NFL. Would be an awesome move for the Chargers. Still expensive. I would say a first round and then some if you're looking for Myles Garrett to be added to your team. But last season alone, 47 tackles, 14 sacks, one of the very best in the NFL. This might be one of those dudes, man. And one of the things that was mentioned in this article, a quote by Palacios says, a fresh start for Garrett under Harbaugh's old school style defense might bring out something in Los Angeles that could be vibrantly special. And again, this is something that the Chargers are trying to build in terms of identity. Edge is going to be very, very important to them. And if you have an opportunity this 1 year in 2025 to go add a talent like Micah Parsons, to add a talent like Myles Garrett, I think you got to go take it. You got to do it. And if these are guys that are on their way out already, we have to be on the phones, taking a swing and trying to find a way to solidify that position for the future, because who knows the next time we're going to have this kind of money and draft capital to make it happen. All right? Now, as mentioned in the Cameron Jordan segment, the New Orleans Saints are going to have some players on the move. And another one is a player that has been closely linked to the Chargers, not just by, Sports Illustrated, but, also I've seen this everywhere the last month or so. It's going to be Tyron Matthew, the Honey Badger, who, again, like Cam Jordan, feels like he's been around forever. His days with the Cardinals, his days with the Chiefs, everywhere this man has been, he's been, a menace to opposing quarterbacks on the field. And it feels like a lot of the reasons I described Cam Jordan being on the move are going to be reasons why Tyron Matthew is going to be on the move. New Orleans Saints, they need to try and get younger. They need to try and get draft capital. They need to try and fix their money for the long term. It's been something that's been part of their identity for the longest time, and just having crazy cap issues. They can start that healing with picks, with draft capital, and maneuverable pieces in terms of rookies. Right now, Tyron Matthew, 32 years old, is not going to be part of that vision. He does carry, a bit of I think it's around $12 million as well for Tyron Matthew for his new team if he were to be traded for. And it's an interesting situation when you look at the Chargers. The way that they viewed edge is kind of almost similar to the way I think they view safety as well. You guys kind of noticed that this last this last season in particular. The Chargers went and added a whole bunch of talent at safety, especially when safety became less available due to injury. Of course, Alohi Gilman going down a little bit early. They loaded up on depth even before that with Tony Jefferson. They signed Eddie Jackson, Marcus May, tons of talent. Even Terrell Edmonds at one point was signed by the Chargers. The Chargers were trying to make sure that safety position was very well-rounded and had their ducks in a row in case of disaster in terms of injury. They needed to make sure that position was locked and loaded. And it feels like it's because edge and safety are two massively important positions for the Chargers defense to thrive and produce at the level that they did this season. The Chargers, the number one scoring defense in football, had a lot of results that you like as a Chargers fan. How do we replicate that? By making sure these positions of vast importance are led by talented players. And yes, Tyron Matthew, who's 32, the age does concern me a little bit, but he would definitely not be too expensive, y'all. We're talking a late round pick to acquire him. Something like $10-12 million on the roster for the one season. Of course, that's going to be renegotiated at some point. 7 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 3 picks last season, 7 passes defended. He's not the Honey Badger of old, but he certainly has something left in the tank where you pair him up with what's going on, I don't know, with Alohi Gilman, or, let Derwin James play in the box a little bit more. I think Tyron Matthew is definitely not a bad idea, and it's not. I would say maybe also representative of watch out for the safety position to have some movement this season, right? I'm not quite sure. I didn't see anything in terms of rumors, right, revolving around another big, premium safety, but it feels like that's another position the Chargers may pursue. All right, let's get onto some of the offensive side of the football names here. And again, these rumors are crazy, man. It feels like everybody wants everybody to the Chargers. And some of these guys I'll take, man. Running back, a position that I think is being slept on right now, has a few big names connected to the Chargers. Again, you guys have probably heard this one. Travis Etienne, who's in what it's going to be called a dysfunctional Jaguars, may be on the move. I also read, I think something along the lines of, is it a new GM or ownership or something, muddling the lines between keeping Travis Etienne and trading him away. There might be something additional going on behind the scenes that pushes Travis Etienne out of Jacksonville. But the big one, which I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, if anybody were to be asked, hey, why is Travis Etienne not staying with the Jaguars next season? It's going to be because of Tank Bigsby, right? They already got themselves a really nice running back who kind of took over the job despite Travis Etienne's awesome reputation. He was a stellar, college standout. Clemson, one of the best, coming into the draft for a while. And yet after 2 back-to-back, 1,000-yard seasons, he just hit a cliff. He fell off a cliff here. 26 years old. He had 550 yards last season, 2 touchdowns. Massive fall off for Travis Etienne. $10 million in 2025. Oh, this is the money. $10 million in 2025 if the Chargers were to trade for him. $13 million in 2026. Travis Etienne is a very interesting situation and proposition for the Chargers if they were to decide to go this way. That might actually be the numbers for the next guy. Excuse me. I think I actually put that in the wrong section here. Because I don't think Etienne would be as expensive. Either way, Etienne, he has a lot of history behind him to suggest that he's a very, very good running back, more than capable of carrying an offense. Just something went wrong with the Jacksonville Jaguars his last couple of seasons where it made him fall off entirely. And when you take a look at what the Chargers are looking for in terms of running back, he kind of checks a lot of boxes for you, right? Great run blocker, powerful runner, agile, kind of everything that you're looking for in terms of fitting the mold of a player the Chargers might like. But again, he's failed to meet expectations. The Chargers feel like a kind of team that may try and make this work. And why is that? Recent moves by the Chargers would suggest that they don't mind taking a swing on players like this, right? The trade for the recent Chargers safety from the Titans, that would suggest that, you know, it's a low risk, high reward, Elijah Molden, a low risk, high reward move that the Chargers, if it busts, it's not a big deal because, you know, a trade for a guy like Travis Etienne in this market with the kind of rookie draft that we've got coming in terms of running back position, it would be very cheap to grab this guy and add him to your roster. I'm talking a late day 3 pick, maybe even a day 3 pick next season. It feels like it's more of a relationship thing with Travis Etienne, that they want him off the team. Tank Bigsby's taking over the role. Why not take a swing on a guy like Travis Etienne? The Chargers did that with J.K. Dobbins, with Gus Edwards. If you're looking for depth at the position, at a position that I think is easily one of the biggest slept positions on the Chargers this offseason, people aren't talking about it enough. The Chargers need a number 1 running back that can carry the offense. It's a big part of what makes this offense work, and the Chargers just kind of don't have a permanent solution there right now. Etienne may offer some pretty huge upside in terms of like RB2, maybe even RB1, depending on how they view his talent. Etienne may be something worth pursuing. Me personally, and this is going to be the case for every running back on this list, and I only have a couple, I don't know if I'm going in on a trade. If Etienne were to be cut, which is very likely as well, if another running back were to be cut on this list, I guess you can go out and grab him for cheap, but I see no reason to go throw your hat in the ring for maybe a struggling running back when this new class, this upcoming class of running back in this 2025 draft is one of the most impressive I've seen in a long time. You could draft even a couple of guys from this class and be set for a while. And I think the Chargers are going to be players in this position in the NFL draft. Now, what about a guy like Jonathan Taylor, right? Travis Etienne, one of those guys that's maybe struggling a little bit, not a lot of faith about, you know, from his own team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, to bounce back. What about a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who's 26 years old, coming off a 1,400-yard rushing season, 11 touchdowns, insane stats for this guy who was once the champion in terms of most rushing yards in the NFL, one of the most highly coveted running backs in the NFL. Would the Chargers take a swing on somebody like this who carries a large cap hit, which I think that was the number for him that I listed on ETN, $10 million 2025, $13 million 2026. He would be paid like a top 5 running back in the league, but for very good reason. He's shown the consistency that you're looking for. He's shown the talent that you're looking for. The one thing that you have to wonder, though, is his availability. Jonathan Taylor, of course, sidelined with injury previous season, has had hiccups in terms of that red flag for a while. Does it stain his reputation enough where the Chargers don't make a move on him? I don't know. This idea was actually brought up by Pat McAfee, suggesting the Indianapolis Colts may consider trading running back Jonathan Taylor in the coming months. And again, this is just kind of because, you know, the Indianapolis Colts still trying to find, you know, a bit of a rhythm here in terms of their offense, what's going on with their new quarterback situation. You know, it's been a bit muddy in terms of the whole Jonathan Taylor situation for a while. And again, Jim Harbaugh is a perfect fit for a guy like this. Just like Travis Etienne, Jonathan Taylor's got that power. He's got that identity. It would be a very big move for the Bolts. It would be a very big identity shifting move for their offense, which is why a guy like Jonathan Taylor cannot be ignored. But of course, he would be a little bit more expensive given, his reputation and success so far, but not that much more because, again, this upcoming draft is flush with running backs. This would be a day 2 pick to the Colts, so you're talking, a pick, or just say round 2 through 3, or through 4, which I would have to imagine, or 3, which I would have to imagine, maybe a third round pick. Wouldn't be too crazy considering Jonathan Taylor is going to have to be paid like a top 5 running back in the NFL. Of course, now rookie contracts are kind of reaching that top 5 pay, you know what I mean, or top 10 pay in the NFL nowadays. Either way, the Chargers, I think, are going to be looking for a upgrade at running back, and Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, these are guys to look out for. One kind of honorable mention I'll put down here too is Breece Hall. A few honorable mentions I'll say. Breece Hall, again, a guy who struggled. Not very many yards, 5 touchdowns last season. A lot of big expectations for him. He did not live up to them, right? James Conner, another big bruising running back that you could look at. That's a good identity fit. Of course, there's Travis Etienne again, and then Kenneth Walker, who's also in a very similar situation. These are all guys to kind of look out for. But again, do the Chargers really make a move given the running back class in front of them? I don't know. Maybe not. Let's move on. DK Metcalf, we've talked a lot about this, and to this I'm going to say, Chargers fans, go watch my last video. I put out a full 20-30 minute video on why DK Metcalf would be an insane move. There's actual rumors revolving around his legitimate trade, potential with the Los Angeles Chargers. There was a scout, a coordinator that said he was linked to the Chargers in some way, shape, or form. This would be a very big move. Wide receiver, huge need. Go check out that video. For more wide receivers, let's check out another guy here in Garrett Wilson, who, again, rumor here, the Chargers may be, in terms of odds, one of the teams to more likely make a move on him. This would be a huge move, considering, yes, DK Metcalf may not be as expensive as Garrett Wilson, but Garrett Wilson is going to last a lot longer. He's definitely going to be one of those prime receivers in the league when paired up with a quarterback like Justin Herbert. He's coming off of a 1,100-yard season, 7 touchdowns behind Aaron Rodgers, who struggled mightily this last season. And the reason for his trade is very obvious. The New York Jets, very dysfunctional right now. Feels like that whole Aaron Rodgers era was a huge stain on their reputation in the last couple of seasons, which is already not great. Quarterback's going to continue being a big concern for them. They got these big assets right now that they could perhaps trade and part with to get some big return back, because Garrett Wilson is the kind of player where you're like, yeah, it's a one and then some. To whatever trade partner they deem worthy, and it would be a big move. It would be a big move. Does it happen? I don't know. Would I do it? Absolutely. I would do the DK Metcalf trade, as a matter of fact, as well, who would cost likely a second-round pick. Some people say a first, but I don't think so. I think second-round pick is more than fair. And it could even be less than that, considering DK Metcalf wants to play for the Chargers too, which may, end up breaking the bank just a little bit more there. If you're looking for a bit of a cheaper option, Chargers also linked to major trade with the 49ers star Deebo Samuel, who's an aging guy, right? It feels like the last couple of seasons didn't live up to the reputation of Deebo Samuel. It feels like, his best days are behind him, and this is probably why the San Francisco 49ers would be wise to move on from him now. Only 670 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, 136 yards and a rushing touchdown on the ground. Definitely not the Deebo Samuel of old. And the big reason you're looking to move on from him for the San Francisco 49ers is definitely money, right? The money situation behind that Deebo Samuel contract. Where you are as a franchise right now, you got a whole bunch of younger receivers that have higher upside, like Ricky Pearsall, and if there's a time to move on Deebo Samuel, it's probably now. And like the article mentions here, like, this is not a number 1 receiver anymore, but this is a really good weapon to pair up with a guy, let's say, like Ladd McConkey. Now, maybe it's a little redundant. You're going to see a lot of slot work from both of these guys. You can definitely put either one on the outside, but this is still a guy that, has a lot of things that the Chargers offense wants to run. They want to try more, end arounds and running plays to the wide receivers. They want more versatility. Deebo Samuel, great, blocker as well. These are all kind of boxes that are checked. But the money is confusing to me, right? It looks like it would be a $15 million cap hit this year, $12 million next year. He's 29 years old. Does it make sense? I don't know, but this is another rumor to consider at this point, and one that I'd be like, if it happened, I'd be like, cool, we got Deebo Samuel. That's awesome. That should be fun. But I feel like there's better moves to be made with the capital and resources that we have, including DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, maybe even this next guy, man. I don't know, dudes. I have been all over the place, in my opinion, for trading for Tyreek Hill. This is a weird situation, man. And I'll be honest, I'll be frank, I'm trying to put aside my emotions on Tyreek Hill just to focus on the football side of things, because I have not been a big Tyreek Hill advocate for a long time now. Certainly back with his reputation off of the field during his time with the Chiefs. Since then, it feels like he's straightened out. It feels like there's a lot that's happened in terms of his maturity. But it just, I don't know, man. I'm still not quite there yet with Tyreek Hill, the off-the-field person. But, hey, I don't know. In terms of what he would offer the Chargers on the field, however, you can't ignore what would be an awesome connection between him and Justin Herbert. Imagining the speed of Tyreek Hill with the big arm of Justin Herbert, things get insane. Now, Tyreek Hill is obviously not his former self. He's 30 years old, going on 31. He only produced 950 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. These are all the red flags to avoid, but it's a special talent, which is why you can't completely take him off the table yet, right? He could definitely play with the kind of speed that hasn't slowed down all that much, not as near as much as you would expect. The route running's still great. The hands are still pretty good. I don't know, man. It seems like something that the Chargers are definitely mulling over there. The biggest thing that's going to confuse you, though, is the money, too. And this is going to be a big complication for the Miami Dolphins as well. Because, as you guys know, Tyreek Hill has said he wants out. He wants to go to a contender. He felt like he wants to be somewhere where he can win. There's all the different reasons, but he very publicly stated that this was his last year with the Miami Dolphins, even considering that he just had a contract extension, or I should say rework or whatever, last August. It was curious the way that they did it, because there's no guaranteed money outside of this next season. So it has to be something that it's renegotiated if he is indeed traded. But the money is still kind of complicated. And again, I'm not completely sure how it's going to work, but it sounds like on the surface, it's a little bit more palatable than I had first thought, because you take a look at his contract. Actually, I still have it open over here. Let's take a look at it. You take a look at his contract. Man, these numbers scare me away right away. Like the way that this has been, and this is actually starting right here, 2025, 27 million, 51, 12, like, and this is a void year right here. It's like, man, what are you going to do with the contract that big? It's impossible. Well, taking a closer look at it and then doing a little bit more research, this is kind of the situation. It would cost $26 million for a new team to trade for him on this next season, which is absurd. That is top wide receiver money for a guy who did not produce last year. Still, the reputation may be enough for a team to bite, but it's enough for me to hesitate too. However, what's more likely because of leverage to happen is that Miami eats a big chunk of that guaranteed salary. And what that means is, because Tyreek Hill wants out, very similar to some other big names that wanted out in the past, like DeAndre Hopkins, those kinds of trades force their current team to take a bigger loss than they normally would. And based on that assumption, you could get that number lowered down to around $12 million for his new team on this season. That is something that I would definitely consider as a Chargers fan. If Miami were to eat a big number of that, let's say Miami wants a return for a 30-year-old wide receiver that didn't produce last season, that's disgruntled and want off your team. If they were to accept a third-round pick and then eat a big chunk of that money because, hey, Tyreek doesn't feel like he's going to play here next season anyway, that's something that I would consider. Does all that come to pass? I don't know. Maybe. It could. And if it does, and he wants to play for the Chargers, then have at it. Let's, I guess, try to make it work, because I don't know if you guys haven't seen this as well, but he has been keeping a tab on all the rumors of him being traded to the Chargers. He's been leaving reactions on fans speculating him coming to LA and his connection with Justin Herbert. So, I mean, it's on his radar. He wants out of Miami. He may be more affordable than we initially thought. But the last leg of that would be the contract would need reworking, as nothing in his contract outside of 2025 is guaranteed. 2026 and beyond, those years, none of that money is guaranteed. So the Chargers or whatever team trades for him would likely need to renegotiate the contract terms to keep him on the team. I'm going to guess 3 or 4 seasons would be what that would be worth for the new team to take a gamble on. So there you have it. There's Tyreek Hill. Last couple guys to mention. I think tight end should be a priority for the Chargers this season in both the draft and free agency. Let me explain. The Chargers very likely to go draft a guy like Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren, depending on who's available at 22, where the Chargers are picking in the first round. I say grab a tight end. I'm very convinced of that, no matter what you do in the offseason. But even with that plan in place, right, I want a veteran tight end on this team that is worth their weight with Justin Herbert as your quarterback. What I mean by that is Justin Herbert does not just deserve one great tight end, he deserves two. And what I mean by that even further is that Colson Loveland, let's say he's drafted by the Chargers, is the Chargers tight end one of the future. He's going to need some seasons, under his belt, though, to become that true number one target, give him some time to develop in the league. I like that. In the meantime, let's go get a guy like Mark Andrews to pair up with him. Let's give the Chargers two elite tight ends for the next 3-4 seasons. Mark Andrews, only 29 years old, by the way. Be a fantastic option for this team with a coach that loves the position. You take a look at every team he's coached. Tight end has been a big emphasis of the success of those teams. I think the Chargers should go get a couple of them this year. With the idea of the draft in front of you, as okay, we're probably going to get Loveland, we're probably going to get Warren, we're probably going to get the Bowling Green guy or whatever. There's a whole bunch of tight ends that you could potentially be looking at in the draft, but I would say it's also worth it to go get a number one now in the league now tight end for Justin Herbert. Mark Andrews, 29 years old, 670 yards last season, nothing crazy, but 11 touchdowns. Sign me up. Chargers need help in the red zone. Pair him up with Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren, whatever. Get that guy up to speed in the NFL by the time the torch is passed to the new guy. I love it. Get tight end completely and utterly fixed this offseason. I beg you, Chargers. Interior offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, a big deal for me. Another tight end that's lightly been pitched. Again, we see this every season, so I won't spend too long on it. Kyle Pitts, the vision isn't quite being fulfilled out there. It doesn't feel like the Falcons want him, right? It feels like Atlanta is good with him just playing his rookie season and being done with it, which is nuts to me. Remember when they brought in Jonnu Smith and they started giving him all the targets and all that kind of stuff? I was like, what the heck you guys doing? You got Kyle Pitts out there at wide receiver, practically, right? At tight end. 600 yards, 4 touchdowns last season, only 24 years old. Hey, if you can get Kyle Pitts for a third round or later or whatever, I'm all about it. But we kind of hear this rumor every single year, so who knows, if that would ever come to pass. Finally, a couple honorable mentions here. This one's coming in from Clutch Points. Yeah, they talk about DK Metcalf. One that I kind of did like too was J.C. Horn. The Carolina Panthers kind of in a very downward trend right now. They thought they had a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. They need to free up some money again. Maybe an opportunity to swoop in and grab a nice talent at cornerback that the Chargers are sneakily going to need this offseason. Who knows what's happening with Asante Samuel Jr. Of course, J.C. Horn, not the best season last year. I mean, in terms of sacks or just in terms of picks and pass defended, yeesh, right? One pick, not great in that department. But he did have 2 sacks. He did have 68 tackles. He's very physical. Kind of fits what the Chargers are looking for at cornerback, and it's something that I don't think would cost nearly as much as everybody's thinking. Some people are saying, like a third, second, I don't remember. A day 2 pick gets the deal done. And I think, honestly, for a lockdown corner, not even lockdown, but just a really, really good corner, I would be about that, okay? Longer video today, but a lot of rumors to go on and talk on today. Some of my favorite, please, in the comment section below, let me know some of your favorite and some of the more likely that you think could actually happen. My favorite, I would say my favorite trade on this list that I think that the Chargers could more realistically go for, and again, please go watch that video, was the DK Metcalf trade. That's my favorite. I think the Chargers should move on that. I think a second rounder for a prime DK Metcalf is absolutely worth it. Maybe even the most likely to happen, too, is the DK Metcalf trade. If it were a dream scenario for me, though, if we could make one trade on this list happen, go to the first one, man. I would take Micah Parsons in a freaking heartbeat. But that's just it. So I'm going to say that, actually. For my dream scenario, I think Micah Parsons is definitely what I would do. If I'm looking at the most likely of all of these, rumors and stuff, I think it's DK Metcalf, who's probably got the most footing right now, the most backing in terms of rumors whirling around the NFL right now. But hey, maybe none of these guys happen. And it's a different name that none of us saw coming. Which, hey, that would be exciting too. I think the Chargers do make a move. I think we have too many resources not to make a move. Will it be one of these guys? It could be. And if that does happen, I can't wait to come back to this video and be like, hey, look at that, man. It definitely came to pass. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, and happy birthday to my little brother. We'll call him Corlac around here. Hope you have a good one, man. Let's go have some dinner. Some steakums tonight, man. It should be fun, dude. Happy birthday.